I was very, very bored in my job at Meta, extremely bored. I was routinely in meetings with like 15 engineers that were all getting paid more than $1 million a year. And it was juvenile. Like it was really bad. Sorry, I'm going to piss off some of my old colleagues and friends that still work at these large companies. No disrespect whatsoever. But life is easier, right? My plan was to take the summer off and, kite surf and just travel and go to Bali. This just seemed so intellectually stimulating. It was literally born like in a week, and it came to us rather than us like putting it on a sheet and seeing if it sticks.
On today's episode of the First 10 podcast, we are joined by a guest who embodies the bridge between elite engineering and bold entrepreneurship. Shashank Chiranewala has one of the more original origin stories you'll hear on the show. He started his career in investment banking, moved into product management at Meta and Microsoft. Then he did what most people only dream about. He quit, built a startup, and then he sold it. And then he immediately started another one. His latest venture is Plutus, a Seattle based fintech startup that does something that I find super interesting. It takes the kind of sophisticated thematic investment portfolios that were once reserved for hedge funds and ultra wealthy individuals and makes them available to everyday investors. At Plutus, he's taking on what he calls a Herculean software engineering effort. And to make that happen, he is currently handpicking founding engineers for his team in Seattle. In this conversation, we'll explore how he thinks about building early engineering teams, how he defines technical excellence in a regulated fintech domain, and what he's learned about hiring, culture, and scaling product impact in the first stages of a startup. Shashank, welcome to the First 10 podcast.
Thanks, Boris. Nice to be here.
Yeah, excited for you to be here as well.
Yeah, looking forward to getting this chat started. I liked your intro. There's some giggles there.
Thanks, I appreciate it. We always like to have a little bit of fun with that. To get us going, what's something that most people don't know about you?
I kite surf a lot. Um I have this insatiable urge to basically engage in sports where I can probably die. So kite surfing, skiing, I really wanted to go base jumping, but I'm forbidden by my wife. So I
Oh
guess
man.
outside of close personal circles, probably the least known fact about me.
That's awesome. Is that what you do on your sunny days in Seattle?
Yeah, I mean, kite surfing is limited to very precious conditions during the summer. Typically from June to August. I can't say that I'm able to go a lot these days, all of my own doing, but definitely try to get out there any chance I get. Everett Jetty Island is one of the most beautiful places you can kite surf. Nothing bites you or stings you, and it's nice, sandy beach. So love it. You got to come out sometime.
Nice. I do. One of my vivid memories of Seattle, and I'll never kind of lose this image. The first few times that I've ever been to Seattle, it was only beautiful days, and everyone was outdoors, and they were doing some sort of outdoor activity. It was kayaking or running or biking, and maybe some people were doing all three over the course of a day. But that was my image of Seattle. I'm like, this whole rainy thing, I'm not seeing it. And then I of course been there a couple more times, and it definitely has that as well. Um, but maybe on that note, like, what's your favorite? How long have you been in Seattle now? What's your favorite part about living there?
I moved here in, 2019. So I've been here a while. Um, and like you, the first time I ever landed in Seattle was probably, in the middle of the summer on a very beautiful day. My older sister had actually moved here to work for Microsoft.
Okay.
And I distinctly remember my drive home from the airport to her house in downtown Bellevue. And I was like, what is this magical place?
Right.
All I see is water, a lot of terrain. And I was living in Michigan at the time. So it was just breathtaking. Um, and that's kind of what, really attracted me to this place. Just the natural beauty, just everything about it. My favorite thing to live what I enjoy the most about living in Seattle, I would say, our my house that I live at now, are we primo lake view, but on one side I see Mount Rainier, I see downtown Bellevue, I see Seattle downtown. So there's been days here where in May and June I've gone kite surfing and skiing in the same day.
Oh, amazing.
For me, that's basically it. 30 minutes, 35 minutes in one direction or the other, and you hit the ocean or the big, beautiful mountains, and it doesn't get any better for me.
Yeah, that sounds pretty incredible. Sounds like a good place to play hooky, from, but probably difficult, to do, when you're running your own startup.
Yep.
Yep. So you're on your second startup. So I don't know this, but I assume you must have either an entrepreneurial itch, or did you have entrepreneurism in your background? Maybe like, tell me like where this itch or desire to build companies came from.
Yeah. To be honest, I genuinely feel that in some ways I'm cursed. And I say that because I've always known this, I've never fit in a box. And I'm very bad at adhering to dogma or just like, the thing that you're supposed to do. Right. And what I mean by that is like, a lot of people, even in my personal life, question, hey, why leave this beautiful paying job at Microsoft to go elsewhere and then leave that to live the life of misery and be a founder and struggle, right? And it's that thing. It's been a theme all through my life and especially through my professional career is like if I see an opportunity and it feels meaningful enough to me, if I'm curious enough about it, I can't really stop myself from going and exploring it further, which usually results in, you know, a startup, I guess, or a new job in past life. And that's really honestly just been the theme. Um, you mentioned in the intro that I started my career in investment banking. Another person would have just stayed in that job because I was pretty good at it. And all my peers were now they're all VPs and, high flying bankers. And I could have stayed that path and life would have been a little bit easier, less volatile, higher paying. But that theme has just kind of reverberated. And that's what leads to this itch, if you want to call it that. I did come from a family where my dad was a businessman in India. So not to play Dr. Freud here, but who knows? Maybe that had something to do with it.
You never know. I mean, I find it could either be one or the other. I was going to ask about your early years, and I found that it's either I side in my family, like in my family, my father was also business person, entrepreneur. I felt like I've always kind of leaned towards that. But my mom had a very steady, steady career. She just maybe changed jobs just a small handful of times. So I could have easily kind of swung that way. And I hear, stories from people who say, no, both my parents were very kind of stable earners and, company people, so to say. And I don't know where I got this from. So it's interesting to hear that that was where, that was where that came from, or maybe kind of what you pull from, as you kind of, go through your entrepreneurial journey.
Yeah, I don't know. It's been this way since middle school, basically. I was the guy who was, doing stuff in middle school and high school, like, whether it was just playing on some arbitrage where like people needed phone top ups or something like that or whatever.
Yeah.
And like I would figure out the hack and like then become the person you'd go to. But I don't know. I was just naturally always very interested in this. It was very satisfying for me to pursue these types of things that made sense to me.
Yeah, you saw the opportunity and had some boldness around going for it, and I think that is at the root of any founder story.
Yeah.
So your first startup, tell us about it. So Form Lodge, you started. Tell us, what the impetus was for that, what you were building.
Yeah. I was working at Meta at the time and I had just applied for my own green card. And I went through the process like everybody else with resources. I was like, let's hire the Harvey Specter of immigration law and like just, make sure everything is done right. So I went out, I found a very qualified immigration lawyer, highly reviewed, highly paid. and I hired her, and my experience was absolutely horrible. Um, and it was just, I couldn't get like why things were taking so long. Things seemed very imprecise, imperfect. I didn't get it. And this curiosity, just kind of built up, and I started researching the whole process. It's not rocket science. You can understand it if you really dig into it. And long story short, I just ended up like not using her, even though I'd paid her, and I did my whole application myself, and I got approved in like record time. I think it was like 35 days or something like that. It was unheard of. And that kind of like just spawned this idea of like, well, there's so many other people in my similar situation. Why isn't there a SaaS layer that can just solve this? Because in the process of filling out my own application, I built some tooling, and it was like incredibly powerful, right? And so I was very, very bored in my job at Meta, extremely bored. Um, and this just seemed so intellectually stimulating. And to be honest, there wasn't a grand plan. I think there was more excitement and naivete than anything else, which just was like, well, let's do this. What's the worst that could happen? And that's what led to Formloge. And the goal there was, hey, let's build a SaaS layer that can help end immigrants, law firms just process this casework way more precisely. To give a bit of context, right? You typically have to fill out like, you know, tens, if not hundreds of pages worth of like very tedious forms, which are very prone to mistakes.
Yeah.
Lawyers are exceptionally bad at this, and people who don't know about this process deeply, like you don't even know where to start, right? So the goal was, hey, there's enough technology out there to build a solution that can just do this and keep it cognitively simple. And so that's how Formler started, and that was the journey we went on there.
Fascinating. I'm going to go on a tangent because you said something that's very interesting to me. You said you were bored at Meta, and then my immediate thought was like, it went to this thesis that large companies are very bloated, and people are there for kind of work life balance purposes. And so I'm curious. I mean, you don't work there anymore, so I mean, share what you can. But like, how bloated do you think large tech companies like actually are? Like, how if you take today and then you take like the ultra lean version of them, like kind of what are we looking at from a delta perspective?
I mean, it's horrible, right? Like the org that I worked in was supposed to be responsible for all of Meta's data infra like footprint, right? So think all of their data centers, planning of, managing of, optimizing, all that stuff, right? And this org spanned thousands and thousands of people. Um, I would be I'd be kind in saying that it was childlike in the way it was operated. Um, they were managing billions of dollars worth of infra off of Google Sheets that were manually created, and just nobody knew exactly what was going on. And yeah, it was. I mean, as a founder, I mean, I think back to those days, and I'm like, I was routinely in meetings with like 15 engineers that were all getting paid more than $1 million a year to work there. And that's such an expensive team, right? You could attribute that meeting itself to being worth like $100,000 or something like that just because of the people's time that was being spent there. And it was juvenile. Like it was really bad. And that's where the dissatisfaction I think stemmed from too. So to answer your question, like, is there bloat? It's massive. It's systemic. um, it's horrifying how bad it is.
Yeah.
Um, in Meta's case, they just happen to be a cash generating machine. I mean, they've got a amazing business, right? And so that hides these inefficiencies really well because they can afford it. But yeah, it was pretty bad. And that's been the same for pretty much anywhere I've worked.
Yeah. Last week Block laid off 40% of their staff, 4,000 people, and the stock went up. Right? How if you had a guess, no one has a crystal ball, but how much of that do you think we'll see across our industry, or how much of that can we see across our industry, where companies could deflate to some level, and not really miss a beat with regards to company performance, if not even improving company performance.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think Block is, in my personal opinion, I'm not speaking for my company here or anybody there, but listen, I think Block was, it seemed like it was just bloated a lot. And to extrapolate that to say, what could other companies that are super large do similarly and not miss a beat? I mean, I don't really have to opine on it. There's so many examples in the past if we look at it, right? You could look at Twitter, which is now X. You could look at Meta. You can look at any number of these companies out there that have cut very large percents of their workforce overnight, seemingly, and have had no problems operating, right?
Yeah.
So that definitely exists. There's bloat that you can just cut out and then people are forced to take ownership, right? Because sorry, I'm gonna piss off some of my old colleagues and friends that still work at these large companies, no disrespect whatsoever, but life is easier, right? Like you're not like if the stock's down 20% and if the business is not doing well, the very thought provoking question I'd ask is like, how does the average senior manager or principal or whoever, how do they actually feel? They don't, their dinner plans don't change. They don't sleep any worse. They show up to work the next day, same game plan, nothing changes, right?
Yep.
That is a problem, right? And
Yeah,
so
I think what
yeah.
you said is like the inverse way to say that is that's a low impact. It's low impact. Unfortunately, I mean, I'm in the same boat as you are. A lot of respect for the caliber of people that work at these places, but
Yeah.
I'll often think or I'll ask, I'm like, point to something that moved the stock price, and I mean, nobody can. It's impossible to.
Yeah.
And it kind of just speaks to the respective impact. But I don't want to necessarily kind of make this a bash on that. I was really just curious about
Yeah.
your take on that because I do think it's such a big it's a very important topic and I and people are trying to anticipate how AI and how how employment will be impacted by all that's going on, and I don't even think all this is being impacted by AI yet. So I think
Yeah.
that is yet to come.
And to be honest, like because you're touching on AI, right? My personal opinion is that, the way the world has it in that AI will just suddenly replace jobs. Um, I don't necessarily think that's going to play off because Javon's paradox is very real. What's going to end up happening is that all of these people, sure, will use AI tooling in some form to make their jobs easier, better, but we're just going to consume more of it. That doesn't necessarily mean that that individual's output is going to be higher, right? Maybe their level of effort is lower, or maybe something like that happens. But yeah, I certainly see that as being more of a thing.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure we're gonna go in that direction too. There might be a journey we take to get there that might, involve some concerning impact. It's hard for someone who just got laid off because their, org was, figured out how to be more efficient, or it's tough for someone looking for a job who can't, and they can kind of point to AI impacts. It's tough for that person to hear that, but I do believe that it will net out the way that you're describing as well.
Yep.
Okay, so you built FormLodge, and then you said you ran that for a couple of years, then you ended up getting acquired. Maybe tell me the story of what you envisioned for the company, and then how acquisition ended up coming about.
Yeah. So this whole journey started, let's say, summer of 23, really, with Formlage, right? And the acquisition closed in May of 25. So we'll just say year and a half thereabouts, right?
Pretty
That's how
quick.
long we were in it. Yeah. And frankly, there was no plan of any sort of acquisition or exiting that business. I mean, I was doing that because, it seemed fun, it seemed curious, and my team shared that vision. Um, and frankly, January 25, so last year, we were off to a flying start. I mean, we'd finally seemed to hit on some form of product market fit. Revenue was really starting to take off, usage was really starting to take off, all those things were happening. And then the Trump administration started off. And so what that did to our business is it just introduced a massive amount of volatility
Mm,
in that, our customers that were primarily law firms just didn't know what their business looked like anymore. Um, things just came to a very sudden grinding halt for them. Suddenly they were questioning, if their business is viable or not. Any number of things were happening, right? And so, not taking a political point of view here, but from a business perspective, it just became kind of a weird place to be in. And our assessment of the situation was that our service ultimately would probably become more important as a result of the changes that were happening because the level of precision needed is higher, because everything is just being scrutinized way more. But frankly, one of the core reasons that, I'm building Plutus or I built formulas or did anything in the past is because it's fun, right? And I think the shared feeling within the team is that we weren't like having fun for a variety of reasons, not abating to the short term volatility or anything like that. We weren't excited about what this business looks like 6 months, a year, 2 years, 5 years from now.
yeah.
And so that being the case, life's too short. um that kind of prompted us to start thinking about, like, okay, what are we excited about, what do we do next? And then, while we were doing all of that, an existing customer of ours, that's a very large CRM company at the time, found out that we were planning on shutting this down, and so they were just like completely dependent on this product, and that's how the acquisition came to be. Frankly, it was yeah. I mean, we didn't even plan to get acquired, but the customer wanted it badly enough where they just absorbed the product.
Interesting. Okay. And they absorb the product and the team.
No, I kept my team. That was an explicit thing. These people are dear friends of mine, people I've known for many, many years. So we stick together. We share a joint understanding of like why we're doing what we're doing. And so that was not negotiable.
Interesting. Okay. So you were going to shut it down anyways. The customer acquired the product, and then you kept the team. So what was Plutus already in mind, or you were like, we're going to go figure something out to
Nope.
build together?
We literally had a Excel sheet with something like 70 ideas out there.
Wow.
And yeah, we had a framework at that point of like what converts an idea to being a successful, business opportunity. Those two things are very different, right? I'm excited about a lot of things, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's a good business to be in. So everyone was just kind of like throwing ideas in that sheet, and then we were putting it through the framework. And one of the points in the framework is like, are we all collectively excited about this? Like, does it seem fun or whatever? And so we're just kind of like going down that path. Um, and frankly, Plutus wasn't on the list. Um, Plutus came to be our number one idea, by the way, was a robotic startup.
Okay.
We were gonna import a whole bunch of these very awesome robots from China, specifically Unitree, and then look at the application layer of that. In fact, I imported at least two of them. Um, and we were just kind of like exploring and whatnot. And this was all happening in April of 2025. This is when the tariff drama hit. Market took a dive, and we were, S&P was down like 20-25% for the year.
I remember that.
Um, yeah, you remember that. And
Yeah.
so what happened is, I'm looking at my portfolio, pretty much subject to the same thing as everyone else. And I was following this research group, which has now just become infamous, was not so in that day. They're called Citrini Research. I'd been a subscriber of theirs. I really liked their portfolio and how they were managing stuff, but I wasn't following their portfolio, and their portfolio wasn't down for the year. It was still above zero, right? And so that just like made me super frustrated. I was like, all right, we gotta like just like code something up that can just take my brokerage account and like mimic it to what that Citrine research portfolio is. And, you know, it kind of worked. Like the weekend project between the engineers that were sitting idle, right? We just like put it together and it kind of worked. It was very hacky. And that kind of just like prompted the thought of like, well, there's two things that happened, right? One is where to get the advice from. I'm certainly not a investment expert, and I don't think most people are. So I didn't know the how. And then even though in my case I had a how in Citrini research, I did not have like a way to actually implement it because like their portfolio is spread over 14 different markets. Like you just can't physically execute it.
Right.
So um it was like, okay, so there's like this double lockout that's happening, and this is a common shared problem, comes up pretty much in every social conversation I'm in, and it's like this widespread issue, right? And that kind of prompted like, okay, so this is like this wide gap. And frankly, we thought that there must already be existing tools and products that solve this problem. To our dismay, there were not. Which then led to could this be a thing? Led to many conversations internally with, potential partners. And then that's what prompted Plutus. So it was literally born like in a week and it came to us rather than us like putting it on a sheet and seeing if it sticks.
I love the way the world works like that because I think from a founder perspective and from a kind of doing anything perspective, like you couldn't have not done the spreadsheet thing. You can't just kind of like walk around looking at the sky waiting for something to come to you. You can't do that. But then you also kind of have to at some point, find the irony and like doing all this work and then like the thing that's not in the work that you end up doing.
Yeah. I mean, listen, it's just like you got to be imaginative. You got to be curious. You got to be open.
Yeah.
And that works both ways, right? Um, yeah. So, um, could have very well been an idea that we came up with, but, which in fact is true. It just, we had a very strong catalyst personally at that time,
Yeah.
which caused it to come up, which was great. My plan was to take the summer off and, kite surf and just travel and go to Bali. I'd done a solo trip back there in 2019. I wanted to redo that, but the acquisition closed on, I want to say, May 21st, and Plutus was already formed on May
Oh my
15th.
God.
So
You're a
yeah,
glutton. You're
there's no time lost.
gl- glutton for punishment. That is a
Yeah.
fact. I want to pick at something because I think you shared the impetus for Plutus, and a lot of things you talked about are, um, you know, you kind of brushed over, and I want to kind of ask you to just walk us through that in a little bit more kind of elementary terms for people who may not be as familiar with like that industry. You talked about research, you
Right.
talked about hedge fund, you talked about portfolio. So Citrini is a hedge fund, and that's just an example, but I'm sure there are many of them. But Citrini is a hedge fund, and you talked about research, you talked about subscribing to research, you talked about having to kind of not being able to pick the portfolio. Can you like explain to me like what some of those things are mean?
Yeah, sure. To start off, so Trini Research is a purebred research firm.
Okay.
Um, these people don't manage money. They don't do any of that stuff. They literally just go out in the world and they conduct research and they write amazing, thought-provoking papers that explain their worldview of like what might happen in very different industries, etc. And then that converts to possible investment opportunities and so on and so forth. So I just want to clarify, that's what they do.
Okay.
And that is the role of any research firm, right? Their role is to be unbiased, and to go and first principles basis, right? Like think about the world we live in. And then, some of them specialize in specific industries, some are more generalist or have multiple teams that specialize in different things. And so really their ultimate goal should be to create thesis and investment ideas that can be acted upon, right? They're not supposed to be biased or inactionable because then what's the point? So
Okay.
that's a very key concept. And in the past, this has been totally dominated by big banks, which are in other businesses, which do have hedge funds, which do a variety of different money management type of things. And so, oftentimes they find themselves in a place where they're publishing research on a topic where, legally speaking, they've uh, made sure there's no conflict of interest. And I'm sure that's their best intent, but you can't exactly, look at it from the outside in and be like, one arm of this company is like taking some company to IPO while the other arm is like writing research that says this is an awesome business to be in and it's a glorifying buy, right? Like personally, I
Mm,
just like have a very hard time buying that. And in the years gone by, there has been a dearth of any independent research that comes out because it's just not a model that survives, right? You come out of school with a very expensive degree and student loans to pay, and you need a job. And then what are you going to do? So you go and do research at one of these big banks, and that becomes your trajectory, right? What's happened now is that's changed. There's a lot of social media outlets that allow talented analysts to become research firms just purely based on the quality of their ideas. So I'll stop there and I won't drain anymore on the premise and the uh, you know value of good research.
yeah,
Now, there's other players that you mentioned, right? So what does a hedge fund do? A hedge fund is basically a pooled money account that is investing to make profits, right? And so you could think of Citadel, you could think of Millennium, you could think of any number of these hedge funds. Some of them manage their own money, some of them take outside money. And so that's how they kind of operate. Um, and then finally, I think there's registered investment advisors, right? Which um, the one of the Plutus entities is a SEC registered investment advisor. The role of an investment advisor, as the name would suggest, is to advise you on how to invest your money. This is like going to a doctor to get advice on your health. An investment advisor is a person or company that's qualified to give you advice on investments, right?
right,
And so, really, the way it should work is like Boris needs his money managed. He goes to an investment advisor, gets great advice. They help manage those investments, and then you make a lot of money, hopefully, or at least are able to achieve a return on your portfolio that aligns with your risk reward aspirations, right? And so that's how this is supposed to work ideally. What ends up happening in practice, though, Boris, is that if you don't have $100 million, you're completely locked out of any of these really elite sort of hedge fund models or get access to research that's like super valuable, right? And that's changed a little bit now in that research is available. Citrini Research was one name. There's plenty of very phenomenal researchers out there that dispense their research through various mediums, right? And so really like the gap is that if you wanted your money managed in, the proper manner where you wanted to take professional advice and be able to act on research and like match it to your risk reward needs and all that stuff, you really don't have any options. Your closest option is going to be to either just try to do it yourself or go to like the local bank branch and get wealth management advice. But frankly, I see them more as salespeople than investment advisors, right?
right,
Investment advising is not something you can just like decide to be good at. It's like being a NFL player. Like there are a lot of things have to come together for you to be, playing for the Rams or the Giants or whatever, right? You can't just decide I'm going to be a football player. It's kind of like that in my opinion. Um, and so we see this massive gap. And so what Plutus is aiming to do is we've created this marketplace where, first of all, a lot of these very talented researchers come and create something called a model portfolio. It looks like a portfolio. You can touch it, feel it, see the returns, all that good stuff, right? And then it's made for a variety of different situations, right? So there's like, I don't know, we have like 60 plus um, baskets and portfolios on Plutus today, and they're made for a variety of themes and like risk levels and things like that. And so the goal with Plutus is that you and I or anybody really, right, signs up um, fills out questionnaires around risk, like what you're looking for, where in life you're at, and then be able to be matched with some of these portfolios that meet your need. Also giving you the ability to like select some things if you're curious about it. Like, for example, we might have baskets around AI or, precious metals or any of these things, right? And so Boris could decide like, hey, I'm really like bullish on AI, but I don't really know how to bet on it, right? You can't just buy Nvidia. So like
Right.
maybe you can go and explore that and like that becomes part of your portfolio. So in the end, the outcome that's achieved is you got quality research as your advice. It was managed for your risk. And then you don't have to do anything for the implementation. We simply connect your brokerage account to us. It remains under your control. It's your money, it's your everything, right? We never touch it outside of just implementing your strategy in your actual brokerage account. And so it's a very low trust system in that everything is super transparent. There's no hiding. And our fees are not predatory, right? So it just solves your problem of getting your money managed well without having to take any cognitive load or toil with regards to doing actions and stuff. Sorry, that was a long-winded one, but feel free to dig into any part of that.
No, no, no. I love that because I'm just thinking from a potential or like a archetype customer perspective. There's either big bank advisors, and I feel like big bank advisors have very you know general institutional type of ways to invest. Like all roads kind of lead to some bond or equity mix, or maybe the infusion of some kind of a strategy, but it feels very distant from what feels like present day relevant strategic investment opportunities. Like you mentioned an AI basket, for example. Like I think it'd be hard for a big bank to put together a compelling AI basket, even as straightforward as that should be. It or a straightforward kind of data center infrastructure investment. Like those are two strategies that people might find compelling, but I feel like that would be a difficult thing for a large bank to put together. Whereas you're referencing this kind of whole world of research, and I know people talk about this research on social media, and people follow that, and usually that feels inaccessible, like you mentioned. Like there isn't really a great way to access that unless you have a ton of money or some sort of strategic in or a willingness to put in the work. But you're saying through Plutus I can get access to that.
Yeah, you really can, right? And I think you touched upon this lightly, so I'll say it out loud, right? When you go to a big bank shop or a typical investment advisor, right? You're really being, you know, stuff's being pushed down your throat that's already products. For
Right.
example, buy this ETF, buy that ETF, whatever, right? It's not made for you or your situation. There's this limited menu of things that you can pick from, and they'll pick it and push it down your throat, and it's guaranteed to perform like whatever the average of that is, right?
Right.
Versus here, it's bespoke. Um, we don't have one, two, three things, right? Where we have an incredibly vast array of research-based portfolios and baskets that suit many different needs. And so really the focus is like as if you're going to a tailor, right? You get a bespoke suit, which is like, let's measure you first. Let's figure out what you need. What are you looking for? Where are you going to wear this thing, right? And it gets put together. It's kind of like that with Plutus, right?
Yeah.
Where it's about you. Like, what do you need? What's going to work for you? Maybe you're young in life and you want to take higher risk because, that works for you because that comes with potentially high reward. But may not be the same for me where I'm like a little more balanced because of my life situation, right? And so why shouldn't there be options for both of us, right? And so that really is the goal with Plutus. Like we really think this is a completely wide open area where customers' needs are not being surfaced. In fact, I would say 7 out of 10 people that I talk to, when I ask them how you invest your money, their answer is their broker. The broker has nothing to do with an actual investment strategy. Their incentives are completely misaligned. They want you to trade. They make money on commissions, right? And so, this whole thing is just wide open, and that kind of like exposes how badly like this industry as a whole is placed, right? Where there's not really a customer centric solution, and we're hoping to be that.
Yeah, I love it. I love it for two reasons. One, the access that investors get, and then two, the exposure that these research teams get. Because
Yep.
like you said before, they would have had to go work for somewhere name brand to ultimately build to some place of exposure. But in this case, they could put out some proper research that could be found to be compelling or outperforming, right? And your
Yep.
platform would naturally rise them to a top of sorts, right? Because they would be that's where people would want to invest.
Yeah. And the portfolio creators that come on our platform that are available for the customers to actually invest in, we take that very, very seriously. So we highly vet them. We make sure they're very pedigreed and things like that. But we are in the process of launching something which is more for people that don't have that track record, where they can come and prove themselves out and then, graduate to having that distribution, being able to serve um, their research to a platform of customers, whether it's used for investment or not, right? But to your point, like I fully want to achieve that mission where we completely democratize like the talent that is going into this business, right?
I love that.
The Going to big bank should not be the only choice. It can be your option. I'm a capitalist at heart. I fully believe like people should pursue what compels them, right? But this optionality, like it's amazing. And if you think about it, the researchers that come up without the big bank name only have one thing that they survive on, and that is their sheer performance and what in the business would be called alpha, right? If you don't perform, you're out. Like
Yeah,
there's no, it's fine, try again next quarter.
I love it. It's like the independent artist platform, right? Versus having to go with a
Exactly.
big label. I love it. Um,
Exactly.
I want to touch on something you mentioned earlier and bring it back because I think it's relevant. You talked about how you're ride or die with your team. You put this team together. You guys built the first startup, and then it was off the table for them to go with the acquisition. So, like maybe tell me a little bit about the team. Like, what's the DNA? What are the attributes of the team? And who's with you now at Plutus?
Yeah. We're a team of 6 today, and we're just all owners, man. And frankly, for a very long time, I'm not looking to hire employees. I'm looking to bring on board fellow owners, right? That's really the ethos that we operate with. Which really means like the DNA of this team is get shit done. Like whatever it is, right? Like this morning I lugged a big bag of food into the office because we realize it's way more efficient to just like have these meals in the fridge we can like heat up and eat rather than like figuring out lunch, right? So, whose problem is that? It's my problem because it's my problem, right? That's really, I think, the DNA where it's like nothing is off limits. I think you could ask any member of my team our bank balance and they'll probably tell you the number. You can ask them what our sprint plan is or what our next roadmap item is. I'm sure they'll tell you with vivid clarity. And so, really, the ethos is like we all own this thing, right? And we're missionaries. Like, I should probably not say this, but like, I don't really care about like, at a personal level, like making, money out of this so I can buy yachts or something like that. It's really, I think, the mission. And I think we as a team share that mission. It doesn't have to come at the cost of not making money. I expect us to make money and lots of it, right? But that's how we operate. So it's really just that. Like be elite, obviously be extremely intelligent. I can tell you wholeheartedly every member on this team is smarter than I am and more hardworking than I am, right? And it's like, yeah, like be intelligent. Mediocrity is not cool. Like come work with people who like lift you up and you lift them up, right? And then it's a wide open field of unsolved problems. So you pick them and you start smashing them, and then you go forward and you celebrate, and it's very gratifying. Um, so hopefully, this culture doesn't change for a very long time, if ever. And that's what I'm hoping to replicate with the other people that come and join us in the future here.
I love it. So we're helping you with a founding engineer role. If you're a founding engineer, come talk to us. But tell look into the camera and speak to your future founding engineer. Where should they be? What should they be doing? Why should they come work for Plutus? Be a part of your team and mission.
Yeah. So you should be someone that has a few years of experience. Listen, I'm not going to lie. We're a very small team. We're doing this very complex fintech product where we make like millions of dollars worth of trades, right? So we don't have the luxury of training raw talent from scratch. We need you to know what a hard bank grade stack should look like. We need you to know what a DevOps cycle looks like, what happens when there's a life site, your ability to handle all those things, right? So I don't really care if you've worked at, big tech or medium tech or done your own thing in the past. As long as you have that experience where there's not a huge learning curve, um, that's really it from your skill set standpoint. Um, and then what you'll be doing here, I mean, I think I kind of prefaced it, right? Like we're looking at you as an owner. We have a lot of demand. We are completely like, just pedal to the metal on our engineering velocity to unlock features that bring customers the delight that they need, and also unlock more customers for us so that we can meet their use case, right? So you'll just be in there first day getting your hands dirty. N- we don't want people who are employees. We don't want people who are going to take tasks or expect them. We expect you to come work with us. We'll all sit together, figure out what is the next thing that needs unlocking. We'll figure out, you know, where it is, that you shine the best in that path. And then you pick up that whole thing and just take it end to end, tap people on the shoulder when you need help, and just keep going. The goodness that comes out of this, right, is that you're working with a very elite team that understands engineering deeply. And I personally pride myself on customer support more than anything else. Every customer of ours has access to my cell phone if they need it. I got a call from a customer at 5:30 this morning. True story, right? And so you're dealing with like a product that we take that much pride in. So you get to work on something and see the gratification result of that, which is the customer satisfaction, right? Which is our 150 NPS score, right? Um, the bad things that you will avoid as a result of this is you won't have to sit in some BS meeting and explain some BS thing that you did or whatever, right? It's all very real. It's all very live, right? So, um, we're just all here, right? And so you get to do your best work. You'll probably learn more here in your first few months than you would like in years working somewhere else. And our engineering team is all very highly pedigreed. Not that it matters, but brand names just allude to the fact that these people are skilled. And so there's Facebook, Snowflake, Amazon, Google. That's sort of the talent you're working with. And of course, we pay you a meaningful wage and compensate you like an owner in terms of equity. So the financial rewards are commensurate with the level of responsibility that we're asking you to take. You didn't ask me for this, Boris, but I'll just give a very uh, quick, like, negative thing too, right? Being the owner of your own business, if you haven't done it before, means you're responsible for everything, right? So that comes with a certain level of intensity that is not there in maybe a more stable big tech type job, right? Where you like live in a very narrow lane. If that intensity feels like a bug and not a feature, then it's probably not a good fit. And listen, I get it, right? Like maybe it's for you're just not in that life situation, no shade. But long-winded answer, Boris, again, but really that's our tribe. That's what we're looking for.
Yeah, I love it. I'll share a couple things that stand out from what you shared and what I you know love about what you're building and why I'm motivated to be involved is one, the quality of your team and the quality of experience that someone will get when joining. Such a sharp contrast from what one would get working in larger, more bloated organization, or even at mediocrely run startups. Like, given you guys are second time founding team, I think someone would get an outsized experience being part of the team. Two, you guys are building in the investment space. I think someone just by sheer osmosis is going to become a better investor themselves due to what they're building, and probably net quite handsomely. And then we didn't really spend too much time talking about this, but I love that you're not building in the AI space. I love the AI space. It's transformational, but it is also crowded, and it's tough to tell the difference between signal and noise. And maybe this is a whole separate, podcast topic we'll have you on for part two. But there's a lot to build right now that doesn't have to be an AI enabled, chatbot or robot or whatever. With all due respect to the many great things being built in AI, so those are the few things that I love about what you're building, and then that happening to be in beautiful Seattle, where little bit more rare to see that type of archetype. I mean, what personally stands out to me from a distinguishment perspective.
No, power to Seattle, man. I hope this trend accelerates and continues. And on the AI thing, the only thing I'll say, because this is near and dear to my heart, right? I have a patent, by the way, in machine learning from my past jobs. Um, the thing is, no AI is ever supposed to be a customer product, right? Like, even when you get a Claude membership or subscription, you're not buying AI. You're buying the fact that you can now, like, learn about something that you need answers to, or you can get help with coding or whatever, right? And so I think the misnomer is, like, the flashy thing is, like, just say AI 3 times and then, like, $10 million appear, right?
Yep.
But we're just building for the customer, man. And my customer needs to manage their money better. We use a tremendous amount of AI in our entire stack to enable that. But that doesn't have to come at the cost of putting it down the customer's gullet where, like, oh, listen, you bought an AI product. They don't care.
Yeah,
They care about their money being managed, right? Give
that's a
them the
fact.
most delightful experience. And sometimes that's just talking to me on the phone. I mean, sure, that's fine. And so that's the business we're in. We're not alien to AI. I mean, every engineer on our team has $1,000 a month AI budget to just help them accelerate their velocity at work, because why not? These tools are phenomenal, right?
I love
And
that.
so
I have a
we're
question.
with it.
I have to ask about that. How does an engineer spend $1,000 on AI?
Experimenting, right? Like Codex 5.3, Claude Code, Cursor, all of these are phenomenal tools. I have subscriptions to all three of them. So does everyone on the team, I think. But, you know, the point is, like, this whole space is moving at breakneck speed, right?
Yeah,
Only second to the velocity we have internally. But my point is, like, what was possible with agentic coding tools 3 months ago, 2 months ago, um, that story's completely changed even today, right? So how do you keep up with that curve? You need to be able to experiment. You
I
need to
love
be
it.
able to go and try new things. And, how else, right? And once you've worked in the way we work with these AI tools, I mean, man, I'm telling you, we were having a conversation at lunch the other day, and I think we are genuinely somewhere in the 5x to 10x productivity boost range. Like,
Incredible.
with 3 engineers, or 2.5 if we discount some of my time, right? I mean, we're able to build all of this and maintain it. We've never had a life site, not a real one anyway, right? And so come do that
Incredible.
thing.
I love it. I love it. Thank you again for joining us. This hour flew by. I want to have you back. There are so many questions that I didn't get the chance to ask about, so we will have to do that. But thank you again for joining us. Where could people find you if they want to reach you, and what should their first message to you be?
I mean, easiest to find on LinkedIn. Um, I don't really care. If something about this whole thing resonates, if you want to chat about XYZ, if you think you're a good fit for founding engineer, designer, I don't know what else, right? If you're smart and this just appeals to you, reach out. We're just humans. Say whatever you want. We'll go from there.
I love it. Thank you again for joining us, and super excited to watch what you're building and be a part of it by helping you hire this
Yeah,
great new founding
let's do
engineer.
it.